My name is Elise Marlowe. I am 32 years old. And until last week, I had a boyfriend. I thought I was going to marry. His name was Adrian Vale. 30. To the outside world, Adrian was almost saintly. He ran a thriving online ministry and lifestyle brand called Abundant Grace Living. He had that soft-spoken confidence people confused with wisdom. His videos were full of candles, scripture, folded hands, gentle music, and carefully timed pauses. Thousands of followers called him inspiring. Wealthy donors called him the future of faith-based outreach. A megachurch was already planning a new community center around his brand. To me, he was just Adrian, the man who stole fries from my plate, the man who fell asleep halfway through movies and denied it every time, the man who kissed my forehead when I worked late and told me I made him feel grounded. That was the version of him I loved. That version died last Tuesday. It started with a text from my friend Kiara. Elise, you need to see this. Under it was a link, the kind of link you already know will ruin your day before you even open it. My hands were shaking when I clicked, and there I was, or something wearing my face. A series of shockingly realistic, explicit photos. My face, my shoulders, the tiny birthmark near my collarbone. But not my body. Not my choices. Not me. They were fake. Deep fakes. Vile. Humiliating. And convincing enough for strangers to believe them. For a few seconds, I forgot how to breathe. Then I called Adrian. My voice was shaking so badly, I barely recognized it. I told him someone had made fake intimate pictures of me and posted them online. I expected horror. Anger. Protection. Anything human? Adrian went quiet. Then he laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not disbelief. A fool. Amused. Delighted laugh. Oh. Wow. He said, catching his breath. They came out better than I expected. The room tilted. What did you just say? Relax. Elise. He said, like I was embarrassing him. The AI thing is wild. Right. I stood in the middle of my apartment, staring at the wall we had planned to paint together. You did this. He sighed. You've been getting a little too confident lately. The promotion? The attention? Acting like you don't need guidance anymore. I thought you needed to be humbled. Humbled. That word slid into me like a blade. Adrian. Those pictures are everywhere. Then delete your socials for a while. He said. It'll blow over. I could hear him moving around on the other end. Calm as ever. Maybe making tea. Maybe adjusting the lighting for another video about mercy. You destroyed me online. Don't be dramatic. He snapped. Honestly, your reaction is making this bigger than it needs to be. Then he hung up. I called back. He didn't answer. That night, I sat in the dark until morning. Humiliation is heavy. But betrayal has weight of its own. It presses on your chest. It changes the shape of the room. It makes every memory look staged. The way Adrian had smiled when I got promoted. The way he had said, "Don't let success harden your heart." The way he had asked which photos of me were too polished for social media. The warning signs had not been missing. I had just mistaken control for concern. By sunrise, the shock had hardened into something colder. Not rage, clarity. The next morning, Adrian called. No apology. No panic. Just impatience. Are you over it yet? He asked. I stared at my laptop. My recording app was already open. Here. One-party consent is legal. What do you want? Adrian. People are asking questions. He said. You need to get ahead of this. Put out a statement saying you were hacked. Delete your accounts. And let it die. Why would I do that? Because it's smart? You leaked fake intimate pictures of me. It was a joke. He snapped. A lesson. You needed to be taken down a peg. My humiliation was a lesson, yes. he said, voice rising. And now your overreaction is becoming the problem. That was all I needed. I saved the recording, then I stopped answering him. I did not delete my socials. I took screenshots of everything. Every post. Every comment. Every repost. Every timestamp. Then I hired a lawyer named Miriam Doris. A woman whose online reviews described her as a velvet-gloved hammer. She listened without interrupting. When I played Adrian's confession, her face did not change. When it ended, she said, "Good. He gave us the lock and the key." We filed a police report. She started preparing a civil suit. Then I began thinking about the donor retreat Adrian had attended 3 weeks earlier. The one he had called spiritually exhausting. The one he refused to discuss. The one where he came home smelling like expensive perfume that was not mine. There was one name he had said too often. Adriana Vance, 46. Married. Rich. The biggest donor connected to the new outreach center. He called her a mentor. But when I once joked that she seemed very invested in him, his face changed. Not guilt. Warning. That memory would not leave me alone. So I opened the old tablet we used for travel planning. Adrian had forgotten it existed. His cloud account was still logged in. I searched for hours. Retreat photos. Hotel photos. Group dinners. Sunsets. Screenshots. Receipts. And then I found them. Not in a hidden folder. Scattered carelessly among ordinary memories. Adrian and Adriana Vance, on a private balcony. Her hand resting on his chest. Adrian and Adriana clinking champagne glasses in a hotel suite, nowhere near the retreat center. A mirror selfie of Adrian wearing a robe, smiling with that soft, holy expression his followers loved. On the counter behind him sat a woman's silk scarf. Monoclamel. A. V. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Then, I sent everything to Miriam. For the first time in days, I slept. Not peacefully, but deeply. Because Adrian had believed humiliation would make me disappear, he forgot something important. I was not disappearing. I was documenting. The email went out Thursday evening. The recipient list was small, but every name on it mattered. The 6 members of the church board. The top 5 donors from their annual report. Adriana Vance herself. Subject line: urgent concerns regarding moral hazard and financial stewardship. Miriam helped me keep it clean. No insults. No emotional pleading. Just facts. I explained that Adrian Vale had created and distributed fake explicit images of me without my consent. I stated that I had a recorded confession. I attached screenshots, timestamps, and a secure gallery containing the photos from the donor retreat. The password was moral hazard 11. Then I pressed send. I expected an explosion. What I got was worse. Silence. Adrian exploded. Of course. Texts. Voicemails. Emails. His parents calling me cruel. His mother crying that I was letting darkness destroy a man of God. His father threatening consequences he never clearly named. I blocked them all, but from the church, nothing. No board member called. No donor replied. No one asked if I was okay. By Friday afternoon, a bland statement appeared on the church website. They were aware of certain allegations. They took all matters seriously. They would review things internally. They asked for prayers. Prayers. That was their shield. Adrian vanished from social media for the weekend. On Sunday, a guest pastor preached in his place and told the congregation Adrian was taking a much-needed spiritual rest. They were not shocked. They were managing damage. Miriam warned me, institutions protect themselves first. She said, we showed them the fire. Now we wait for them to admit it's inside their own house. For weeks, it became a cold war. The church gave legal non-answers. Adrian stayed quiet. His followers speculated. My name was whispered like a contamination. Then, Adrian made his mistake. He came back online. The video was professionally produced. White office. Soft lighting. Pale sweater. Bible, open beside him. He looked wounded. Not guilty. Wounded. He said, I was his toxic, jealous ex-girlfriend. He said I resented his calling. His success. His faith. He claimed the deepfakes were something I had created myself for attention. He said Adriana Vance was a motherly mentor, and that the photos were manipulated. Then he looked straight into the camera. Elise is trying to destroy what God built through me. His followers believed him because they needed to, within hours. My inbox became a landfill. Strangers called me evil. Bitter. Unstable. Aliar. My workplace received emails warning them they employed a dangerous woman. Someone filed a harassment complaint against me. That was the point. Not to prove innocence. To make me too exhausted to keep fighting. For 3 days. I almost broke. Then Miriam said, we do not wrestle pigs in public. We hand the pig to someone with a spotlight. She contacted an investigative reporter at a major city newspaper. We gave him everything. The fake images. The screenshots. The retreat photos. The messages. The recording of Adrian laughing and saying I needed to be humbled. The reporter spent a week verifying it. Digital forensics confirmed the images were fake. Audio experts confirmed the recording was not altered. He found Adriana Vance's husband, who had apparently already hired a private investigator. The article dropped the following Tuesday. Front page. Pillars of Faith. Digital deceit. That was the explosion. The church could ignore me. They could not ignore the city reading about them over breakfast. Within 24 hours, Adriana Vance resigned from the board. Donors began pulling money. The church's social pages became a disaster. By Friday, Adrian was placed on indefinite administrative leave, and Abundant Grace Living was subjected to an independent financial audit. The wagons were no longer circled. They were burning. The next 8 months were not cinematic. They were slow. Depositions. Legal bills. Therapy. Panic attacks in grocery store, parking lots. Long silences where I wondered if justice was just another word people used when they had not yet paid for it. The audit revealed what everyone had suspected. Ministry funds had paid for Adrian's luxury apartment, designer clothes, travel upgrades, and the so-called donor retreat that was actually a romantic getaway with Adriana Vance. Nearly $250,000 had moved through Abundant Grace, living like it was Adrian's personal wallet. My lawsuit moved forward. There was no dramatic courtroom confession, just a sterile conference room where Adrian's lawyer spent 6 hours trying to paint me as jealous and unstable. I stayed calm. I repeated the facts. Then came Adrian's deposition. Without cameras, followers, or soft lighting. He looked smaller. Angria. Minor. Miriam played the recording. His own voice filled the room. They came out better than I expected. You needed to be humbled. When it ended, Adrian did not cry. He looked across the table at me and said, she was becoming arrogant. She needed to be reminded of her place. That was the moment his legal team knew. They pushed for settlement weeks later. The final agreement covered my legal fees, therapy, and significant damages. It included a permanent restraining order and a strict NDA preventing Adrian from ever speaking about me publicly again. He was ruined, financially, socially, spiritually, publicly. The church severed ties and rebranded. Adriana Vance's divorce became brutal. Donors disappeared. Adrian's parents still told people their son had been destroyed by a bitter woman. Some people never change. I thought victory would feel louder. It did not. There was no single shining moment where everything became okay. There was only quiet. At first, the quiet felt empty. Then one morning, it felt peaceful. I went back to work. I saw my friends again. I started sleeping through the night. Last month, I took a solo trip to the coast and walked beside the water until my thoughts stopped chasing me. The world is still complicated. Trust is harder now, but my life is mine again. Adrian wanted to humble me. Instead, he taught me exactly how dangerous silence becomes when it finally decides to speak.